So today I'm going to talk about Donald Trump and the 2020 election. Stay tuned. Well, the last post was several weeks ago. Before I traveled, I did some traveling and now I'm back. And so I wanted to recap on what we discussed about the 2020 election with Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the United States and what we've seen happen in the last couple of weeks. Ever since the election took off, and after a few days, it became evident that Joe Biden was getting closer and closer to the electoral tally of 270 electoral votes, whereas Donald Trump was still struggling to get his votes in. Actually, Donald Trump's electoral votes start coming in faster than President-elect Biden, because what happened is a lot of his people were going into the counties and going into the polls and voting manually, whereas a lot of Biden supporters were voting by mail-in ballots and other things. So had it been for just those poll counts, which were people marching into the polls and voting, early voting and all that, Donald Trump probably would have had a significant advantage if there was a specific cutoff time for votes to be in. But during the election in the United States, what happens is the states generally give a few days for ballots to come in, and also the mail-in ballots themselves have to be counted. So they give themselves 3 to 5 days, generally, in different states to count those ballots. And there's certain states that only do mail-in ballots. So all of this is a big, huge deal as far as the votes and stuff like that. And for a time, maybe 3 or 4 days after the initial vote, Joe Biden did attain the 270 count, and Donald Trump was somewhere in the number of about 214 or 232, and Joe Biden his votes were coming in by mail and all of this. And so as a result, so that brings us up to date. But what happened after that is important. Generally speaking, in the American election, the president, once this happens, there's no possible way that the president, in this situation, with Joe Biden in the lead, there wouldn't have been a way that Trump could possibly get to 270. That count would have been done. And generally speaking, the president in his position would have conceded, and the election would have been done, and we would no longer be talking about who's president and who's not in the United States. What would have happened now is the transition would have begun, and Joe Biden would be selecting his cabinet and people that'll be working for him and taking over the White House and these types of things. Well, make a long story short, Trump decided not to do that at all. Okay, he hasn't conceded. In fact, as the election votes were being tallied and counted, what Donald Trump did was he had his legal teams to go and challenge those votes in the different states. And so I wanted to wait a few days and see how that would take hold, because there are a few strategies that Donald Trump still had left, and I wanted to see how that was going to play out. Well, here again, to make a long story short, many of those states have initiated recounts to make sure that their numbers were what they stated that they were, and that they could name a winner in that state and all of these things. And also too, the courts denied a lot of the legal challenges that Donald Trump made in those states. He wanted to take those challenges legally to the vote count and say that Joe Biden didn't win those states. That in fact, he won those states. So Joe Biden waited a number of days, and then he came out and said, "Okay, guys, I'm significantly farther ahead than Donald Trump, and we've reached a number now. The American people have spoken, and I'm going to be the next president of the United States." So he had that formal speech and all of this. What happened then is significant, and that is Donald Trump decided to refuse to concede, and the Republican Party got behind Donald Trump, and they would not validate the Joe Biden as the winner of the election. And so this has been going on now for weeks, and it's an issue because there's a lot of things that the next or incoming president needs to be aware of, need to be setting up to take over the government, transition into government. And there's been a lot of issues with that. Now, so here we are right now. Typically, Joe Biden would be the president-elect. Well, let's just say for the purposes of this conversation that he is. But then you have a president who's not willing to or ready to relinquish the reins of government and leave the White House. So we're still waiting to see how this all plays out. But typically speaking, this has happened before. We've even had situations in the past where two people were being sworn in as president at the same time. We've had all kind of issues in the United States, but this one is a little different because people are arguing back and forth. Is Joe Biden going to be the president? Is Donald Trump going to be the president? But the situation is right now that the truth is Donald Trump still has some legal rights to claim that he's the president. So this isn't finished. This isn't it all over. But at the same time, I think his supporters and donors now are starting to get frustrated, starting to get worried, starting to get antsy, and many of them are now saying he needs to accept the loss, and he needs to get over it, and they need to move on. Whereas others are still holding on, and in the United States, we're going to figure out, how this is going to play out. Joe Biden says that, after January 20th, which is the time when Joe Biden, his inauguration would begin as president, his term as president would begin. As of January 20th, then the Trump administration and all parts of it will become trespassers in the White House, and they will be put out of the White House. So as all of this is brewing, I want to take you back a little bit and share with you, because there are a few tactics that I feel like the Democrats should have been prepared for. And there are a few, call them what you will, call them schemes, call them tactics or measures that can be taken legally. I think the Constitution is weak in these areas, and this is something that needs to be clarified, and that is what happens when you have a president like Donald Trump who doesn't want to relinquish or doesn't want to pass on the baton. What happens when instead of coming together and transitioning peacefully, they get into a clash of who thinks they should be president? What happens there, and who has the power to decide between these two forces, or between these two administrations, who should be in power at this time? A lot of people think that America hasn't gone through that, but America has gone through that. But the Constitution is very weak on these ideals, and so it is left to politicians to decide this. But when the politicians start taking sides and saying, well, this guy belongs to our party and this guy belongs to our party, what do we do in this? Well, there was a tactic that I felt like Donald Trump was going to use. I think he was going in that direction, but it didn't work out. And that is, in a situation like this, a contested situation, Donald Trump, months ahead of the election, said that he thought it would be rigged. He put that out there to the public so that they would believe it. And so even half of the country even now thinks that the election would be rigged if Donald Trump didn't win, that the election would be stolen from him, and there was no way that Joe Biden could win. None of which is true, but if you can get enough people to believe these things, then they can start acting on it. And that's what's been going on. So, what I'm saying is, there was ways in which Donald Trump could have carried this out. If he had gotten enough states to choose their electorates, their voters, their electoral voters, and if he can get enough courts to agree with his opposition and with his challenge, then what would happen is these states, specifically I believe the swing states are important in this measure, but if he could get enough people to vote on his behalf and the courts would agree, his attorneys and courts would agree, then the next step would be to take this to the Supreme Court. Now, this is where I think Donald Trump actually played a great hand. About a month or two ago, the Republican Party, the GOP, rushed through to get Amy Coney Barrett approved as justice on the Supreme Court. Well, if these lower courts had denied Donald Trump and he could take this case to the Supreme Court, and he had enough votes in the Supreme Court, then there was a political and legal way that he could have possibly challenged and won the election. Even though he didn't have enough votes, and even though perhaps enough states didn't support him over Biden. So what am I saying? I'm saying that in the United States, we have a system. This system was created a long time ago, and it's not a perfect system. And so many people don't understand how this works, and as a result, there are ways that it can be manipulated. And that's where we have to come together and make some changes. So people can understand how this works. And why is it important that we have this electoral college that was created ages ago, that may or may not be the best situation? The electoral college is like, say if I was running for president and I won the state of Florida. Well, they have so many votes that they contribute to the overall system. Okay? And say I won Florida, and so those are my votes, hypothetically. Well, if I won those electors because I had enough voters in Florida and I won those electors are supposed to be mine. But here's the thing. Those electors can still vote for the other person. Even though the people of that state significantly voted for me, those electorates that should be mine could still vote for someone else. Right? That's not the typical situation, but there it goes again. There's so much leeway inside this system that it can be manipulated and it can be disputed and challenged and all of this. And so I think these systems were created a long time ago with different types of people, and I think these systems need to be changed. There's a lot of things in our government like this that doesn't make sense. Um, I'm going to bring up one more thing, and these are things I just want you to think about. Another thing it would be, think about this for a second. Say I'm running for president. No, no, no. Let me change that. Say I'm running for senator of a state, and it costs $10 million to run for senator. Okay. I can raise that money in different ways. I can raise it by donations. I can use my own money, and I can recruit um, sponsors, people who will gift me money, and I can use that in my campaign. Okay. Over the years, corporations have taken full advantage of this, and now it appears that other nations are taking advantage of this inside the United States. So, what does that mean? That means that if I'm running for senator and there are specific votes that people want me to vote on their behalf, they can give me money. Now, is this a conflict of interest? Of course it is. I mean, I'd have to be a complete imbecile to think otherwise, right? Whoever's giving me the most money is going to get my vote, right? If it's an oil company versus wind or solar, or clean energy versus an oil company, but the oil company is giving me a lot of money, who am I going to be loyal to? I'm going to be loyal to the one who's giving me the most money. And that's what's happening to the American government, is that these politicians may have started out with a certain intention, but over time they're making money through campaign donations and all these other things, whether it's stocks or bonds or some kind of affiliation. Maybe they're getting support for their personal business or family's business or different things. Okay, but they're getting some kind of benefit, and as a result, they're voting on very important measures that would ordinarily take the country forward or advance our country. Instead, they're advancing the politics of this corporation or that corporation because they're getting a lot of money to do so. And we've seen this happen over and over again, and many of these Democrats, Republicans, all of them are getting money this way. And so these are things that we need to eliminate out of our government if we want to have a real fair election of and get rid and make this a system that has some type of integrity, because right now it's not that way. Okay, let me give you an example. If I was running for governor, or if I was running for a senator or congressman, I could get Amazon to give me millions of dollars because they have billions of dollars, and it's nothing to them to give me millions of dollars, right? They're huge. So, but every time a vote came up that had to do with Amazon, I'd probably get a call and say, hey, we'd like you to vote this way because this supports us. And we've supported you financially. Okay. And what am I going to do as a human? I'm going to vote for the person who gave me the most money. I think you scratch my back, I scratch yours, some kind of business arrangement like that. So I'm sharing these things with folks because I want them to know it's not a popularity contest all the time. Trump is more popular than Biden, or Biden is more popular than Trump, or this president said this, or this president said that. No, it's not about that. Sometimes it's about something as simple as money. And so I want to share one last thing this week, and that is I saw an article that puzzled me, and this was about Senator Lindsey Graham, who is not one of my favorites, but I want to share it with you anyway. And it was about Lindsey Graham calling on some of the folks down in Georgia who were counting the votes down in Georgia, okay, during some of the races, political races in Georgia. So Lindsey Graham calls down there and say, I want you to find a way to throw out some of these legal ballots. You know, find a way, but get rid of these legal ballots. Okay. Now, the issue I have with that is people are going out to vote specifically for their state, whether they want senators, congressmen, governors, whatever. They're going out to vote. And you have a senator in another state calling this representative in this particular state and saying to illegally, mind you, illegally throw out votes, throw out legal ballot votes to get his way. And when challenged with that, because the person he was talking to went public with that information and said that Senator Graham called him and asked him to do this. And so he went public with the information. So then Senator Graham backtracked and said, that was not my intention. He didn't say he didn't say it. He said that was not my intention. Now I want people to understand something. This senator is asking another state to do something illegal. And basically there's proof that he's asking someone to do something illegal because they're in the same party. And my problem with that is the audacity to cross that line like it's nothing. You can tell someone to throw votes out. Who does that? I mean, and not just who does that, but because I'm sure a lot of them probably do it, right? This time you just have proof that someone did it, but I'm sure that a lot of them are doing it. But here's the thing. If America is ever going to do things the right way, these types of incidents have to be enforced to make sure that these kinds of things aren't happening. What do I mean? This is what I mean. A person like Lindsey Graham should be punished for that. He should have to pay a fine, or he should lose his position in the Senate, because that's wrong across the board. To ask someone to break the law to steal votes for this candidate or that candidate. And we should have some type of laws against that. We should have some type of measure that protects people from those types of things. Because that could have been an intimidating thing for this person. It's like, man, Senator Graham has been respected for years in his position, and he's calling me personally to ask me to throw out votes. If that had been done, that would have been devastating. But fortunately, the person he was talking to had the integrity to say, not only am I not going to do that, but I'm going to tell everyone that you said to do that. I want you guys to think about that. It's like, because when we start to think and start to understand that these are our leaders, these are the people that we've chosen to govern and make decisions for our families, whether it's the stimulus package that everyone's desperate right now for money because COVID-19, loss of jobs, eviction notices, all of these things. But these are our leaders, and we need to make them do better. So anyway, those are my thoughts. If you have thoughts like this, or if you have a response to or any comment to anything I've shared today, please let me know. And I'll follow the comments and try to follow up with you and let you know what I'm thinking. Welcome back. This is David Lucas with In the News. And this week we're going to be talking about the 2020 election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Who won that election? It's been a couple of weeks and we still don't know. Stay tuned. This is David Lucas with In the News. And if this is the first time that you've joined the channel, I'd like to say thank you for being here. If you enjoyed the content of this conversation, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and join the conversation. You could have been a lot of places today, but you're here with me, and I really appreciate it. Take care until next time. Bye now.